Hi, I'm Mike Harlow, and I'm helping a project called EveryRiver build an online atlas and guide to rivers anywhere in the world. And by that we mean an atlas, maps, data, factual stuff, infographics, something that's engaging and tells the story of any river in the world, but with a combination of publicly available information, so data from the likes of the Environment Agency, conservation agencies, river authorities, water authorities and the like, even heritage bodies, and combine that with information from you, so wiki style. In fact, it will incorporate Wikipedia encyclopedia pages because there's absolutely every point in investing in that and not duplicating it. So that's the atlas side of it. The guide side of it is about how to enjoy rivers. So it might be a bit more opinionated because you want other people's views on where's the best place to go. Part of testing that, or building, testing the prototype and building it so that when it is made publicly available in a few months' time in its early phase, it works the best it possibly can at that stage. Part of that testing is means I have to go out and look at parts of rivers, take photographs, and figure out when I go into the pub for lunch and get my laptop out, which is I can actually access the live version, the live prototype already, and do that, what it would be like for you and whether that will work and what the resultant product looks like, whether it's a good thing. EveryRiver is a not-for-profit organisation, so there's no money, no ads, no nothing. At the moment we don't have any costs, but we'll come to funding at some other point, but it will be in the nature of the way that Wikipedia is funded. So at this stage, to do the testing thoroughly, I decided I'm going to walk from the source of the Thames to the sea, because that's the nearest river to me, and because it's got a lot of the variety you need in order to kind of do a proper test. I'm going to do one stretch a week, and I thought it would be quite good for you to come along if you want to on those journeys, because I'm going to need your help. I'm going to be asking myself whether this is working. I'm going to be doing things that you don't think will work, and so I'm going to ask you to give feedback every week. It's informal, lo-fi, and this week I'm going to be trying to find the source of the Thames. It's very obvious when you find a river at this sort of stretch at Lechlade, but finding the source is surprisingly difficult, and it's one thing we're going to need to do because we need to mark the source or sources on a map. I've never been to the source of the Thames. I can't remember being to the source of any river, to be honest, so I'm not quite sure what to expect. But I thought I would start by coming to the watershed, the ridge line closest to where the source of the Thames is marked on the map, which we'll go to in a moment. The slightly surprising thing, I guess, or maybe I should have realised it if I'd thought about it, is that it's not very pronounced. It's not like the ridgeline of a roof. It's only about 190 metres up from sea level. So the interesting thing is, if it were a raindrop that fell on my right shoulder, it would go into the River Severn, which is a bit of a competitor to the Thames for the glory of being the longest river in the UK. I think it's the official winner, but we'll come to that. Rivers in the UK don't really get much chance to get going because it's an island. So before they're kind of really stretching their legs, they hit the sea. If raindrop falls on my left-hand side, it ends up in the River Thames, but it's 200 kilometres to the sea as the crow flies that way. So what you've got is kind of very shallow bowl. We'll figure out what the height is when we get down to the kind of official source of the Thames, but it's not much. So there's a long distance to travel with very little incline, and actually the Thames is, I think it's the second largest catchment, depends what you measure it from, and we'll come to the next week is going to be where does the Thames end and what therefore is the catchment for it. That's probably less straightforward than where the source of the Thames is, but because I think the catchment for the Severn is officially larger than the catchment for the Thames. Catchment for the Severn is largest in the UK, but it's still a big catchment area, and yet the gradient is relatively shallow. So there's a lot of water, has a long distance to travel, and not much of a gradient, which is why, of course, you end up with, relatively speaking, in global terms, a slow, wide river, which is why it's perfect for navigation. Even before the locks that we see today came along, it was good for navigation quite far up. Lechlade, where I just was the highest point you can take a kind of proper, engine motorised boat at the moment. And what was I going to say? So yeah, and that's why the River Thames is actually, I think, the busiest. I was reading the busiest for boat movements of all the rivers in the country by some margin, a factor of 2 or 3 times the next, which I think is the Humber. Anyway, as you say, it's not that kind of obvious. It's quite rolling, gentle hills here. This is the Cotswolds. So underneath my feet is that yellowy limestone. The rain will fall here, percolate through the limestone. Limestone makes quite a good aquifer because it's got lots of holes in it, and the water erodes bigger holes and all that sort of stuff. And so the water will drift downhill. It's been raining a lot. This is mid-March 2026. It's been raining a lot in the months since Christmas. I don't know what to find, though. I don't know what we're going to find. I don't know whether we're going to find the sources where it's normally marked. It's further up or further downstream. And I don't know whether it's going to be, I'm not sure, I don't think it's going to be springing out the ground like some sort of geyser in Iceland or New Zealand or something. Well, let's go and find out, eh? Okay, this is not quite what I was expecting. When you walk from the road over there, you definitely don't get a sense that you're walking up the line of a river, but I think that's the direction in which, when it is running, it runs. And then you've got this little hollow here with these bricks around what I guess might be where the trickle first emerges, when there is one. But if it does, it must soon fill up this area, because this is a little hollow. I wonder whether those stones have been placed there by visitors rather than being some sort of natural feature. But you are at the official source of the Thames, because there's this stone, a bit hard to read, but it says the Conservators of the River Thames, 1857 to 1974. They were the body responsible for, well, the care of the Thames, that including the locks and things, and before being replaced by, well, now the Environment Agency. This stone is placed here to mark the source of the Thames. So that is kind of makes it feel official. And then you've got the way markers for the National Trail, which starts here and is intimidatingly long. But where it goes from here, I do not know, because I honestly can't see where the line is that the river would follow. It's possibly just to the left of that bush there, but it also feels like it could go up here. I had a kite kind of circling my head earlier. I don't know where that's gone, but so yeah, it's a bit kind of underwhelming, I guess. Clearly there is at certain times of year a visible stream from here, and I'm assuming not that it comes from this point. So that would be, I think, what the geographers would call an intermittent river. So it's not one that only appears when there's a flash flood. It's one that is seasonal, And certain intermittent rivers, if they have quite a long season, do actually have sort of normal river life in them at times, and then that all recedes downstream when it dries up. But this just looks like a meadow. And then have ephemeral rivers, which are the ones that only appear when there's a flash flood, the sort of things that you see rushing down gullies, obviously on hillsides when it's thundering down in the Lake District or something. So my thoughts are that there's probably two types of source marker to put in the atlas. There's like the human official source, the sort of ceremonial source that kind of caps off the idea of a river having a beginning, a middle and an end. And then there's the real starting point of the flow. That's meaningfully different, obviously, in terms of what the biology, the geography, the ecosystem is at any given time. And I think if we allow everyone to put on markers at any time in any given year, then actually might be quite useful, because you could start to see how much it's changing and start to see, which is where the beauty of the atlas comes in, because it is, it's backed by a lot of official data and historical records, and you can start through those observations to kind of put two and two together and say, notwithstanding that the rainfall is the same as previous years or similar to previous years, the aquifers are lower, and therefore the river is making less of an appearance, and therefore we are losing something of the riverine biology. Sorry, I'm not concentrating on where I'm pointing the camera. So that's where my head's at the moment, on what we do for marking the source of the river. But I'll hold that thought, because I've got two more places to visit. One is I'm actually going to go and try and find the real start of a visible river, which isn't going to be easy because the trail doesn't follow the line that closely at this point. And then we're going to go to somewhere else, which is called Seven Springs, which is a competitor to this location as the official source of the Thames. So this is looking back towards where I've just been. You can see the stone in the distance, but you can vaguely make out a sort of meandering, lighter grass area. But it really isn't anything other than just slightly more trampled area of meadow. The weird thing is it then hits this wall. I can't see a route through, unless that's there. Something's there, isn't it? Okay, that's where it goes through. There is, I think you can probably see it. Oh, there's a big cable there. But there we go. That's where the river goes through. Oh, and it's a bit boggy here. Does boggy count as the start of the river? I don't think so. Now where does it go? Ah, you see the lighter line? Okay, we're on the trail. So I don't know if it's clear, but there is a fairly obvious brown patch, even a sort of browner patch over there, where it's clearly been underwater relatively recently. And then we come to, I think, a man-made escarpment, because it's got a road, a fairly fast road running over it. And then there's this ditch that runs to, I don't know if you can see it, a small tunnel through there. Am I pointing in the right direction? Yeah, there it is. Which takes it under the other side. And can I see water there? I don't think so. I'm going to go and have a closer look, but I don't think I can. Yeah, there is stagnant water there. I don't know if we're calling that start of the river. I feel like it's. And there it is. That water down there is the first signs. I've been following that ditch. Very clear, in fairness, ditch. It goes through the fence up to the left and then follows that little mound and round all the way to the end of that field. The end of that field is where that little tunnel was under the road. That was just stagnant water, but this, it is where it suddenly emerges. And look, weird, right? Because that up there is definitely I mean dry, as in you could walk across it, and then suddenly it's flowing down here. There's quite a lot of water. This is where the water table is emerging, so it's really not coming down. It's just that the elevation has got to the point where we're at the water table. So if I'll make a note of what the height is here, and then go back, because we have all the water table data for wherever it's monitored. It's picked up some of the time. It's picked up every 15 minutes, I think, but other places it's a bit more occasional. But I'll find the nearest to here and see whether that matches with the water table data, and then there you go. It all gets quite lovely and riverine, and there's something which is bigger coming in from the left, which I haven't figured yet. I'll have a look at the map. I wasn't expecting that. And then there's this interesting little barrier. Don't know what that's for. Is that to give a little back pressure? It's got holes through it, but a little back pressure to get drinking water for the cattle or something? I don't know. Anyway. Now that's more what I was imagining. Just off to the left of the line of the ditch that's started to become wet, I said something came in that seemed like another river, but it wasn't. It was just a short stretch of about 10 metres up to this. Now that's a spring, eh? Because it's actually rising up. So it looks, there's a touch of concrete around the edge of it, but I don't know whether that's just to kind of keep it stable. But you can tell that's not something man-made in terms of the water pressure, because it's also oozing out of the sides as well. So this is clearly where enough pressure is built up upslope that it's actually forcing the water pressure above atmospheric pressure, and then, am I getting my physics right? And then it's bubbling up. So a genuine spring rather than a sort of oozing and dribbling to the start of the river. And this location is called the perennial source of the Thames, apparently, because I'm guessing that the aquifer levels around here are sufficiently stable, even in the height of very dry summers, that this still flows. But yeah, isn't that beautiful? The water is so clean and fresh. Just feels very vital. It feels like there should be a couple of fairies perched on the branches over there. And just about 100 metres downstream from that spring, it's actually already quite a broad stream. I mean, it's not, you know, you can walk along a ditch for a long time and it never gets anything like this. Oh, hello, as wide as this. And it just shows you how much water is being added, not just from that spring, but all along. Sorry if the sound on some of that wasn't very good. I just left a bit in the car, and I couldn't be bothered to walk back, which I should have been. Anyway, now that's the kind of sources of the Thames, official and actual, kind of done. We're now going to go to a competitor source, which is actually at the Churn and the beginning of the River Churn. And it's a competitor because if you measured the Thames from there, it would actually be longer than the Severn, and therefore would hold the record for the longest river in the UK. But I think us humans are kind of losing the plot a bit on what rivers actually are when we think in that way. But anyway, let's go and see it, and then I'm going to think a little bit about what we record on the map and tell you my thoughts and ask for what you think about it. And that'll be it for today. Okay, thanks. Okay, this is a place called Severn Springs, and It's like a little hollow by an A road. You park up there and walk down, and then you can, I assume that all the 7 springs are here and they're not somewhere else around this location, but I guess calling that 1, 2, 3, is there one under there, 4, 5, and there's sort of 2 there. Yeah, there we go. There's one there, and there's one there. So 7, oh, there's one in there as well, isn't there? Are they all different, or are they all just one uprising? Anyway, very clear and rather beautiful if it wasn't for the A road next door. Little glade, again quite like a little child's book, really. And that is the beginning of the River Churn. And there is a, turn around, see me, whoa, there is a rather churlish, probably be a bit harsh, but there's a sign from the local authority up there that says, firstly, that there's an inscription around here somewhere that says this is the true source of the River Thames, but also that if it were the source of the River Thames, then it would be 9 miles longer from here to sea, which we'll find out next week is not that easy to measure anyway, and therefore it would be the longest, Thames would be the longest river in the UK. So, but what does that matter? Because actually, I have a theory. Have we got a tree we can look at? There's a tree behind us, look. I have a theory. So let's do my theory. Whoa. We look at that tree behind us. If you ask me to name that tree, I would give it one name. That one there. No, we're looking at that one there. I'd give it one name. I wouldn't give the trunk a name and then say every time it branched out, then I'd give it another name. And that's because, as a human, I can see the whole of that, and that's an identifiable thing. I think the thing about rivers is that our human experience of them is what's immediately in front of us, and at most points along the Thames, you'd go, well, it's the Thames, right? And somebody says, well, what about that water coming in from the side? You go like, I don't know. Let's call that a tributary. So it's identifying a river as a sort of single ribbon that causes us to think, well, where's the ribbon begin and end? And then we like stats and numbers and figuring out lists and who's the top of it, don't we? When of course a river as a system, from a geographical, biological, hydrological point of view, needs to be thought of as kind of one thing. The watershed is really the defining thing, the basin boundary is really the defining thing, because everything that slides into that one basin and pours out the end combines. Water here combines not very far down the road at Cricklade with the Thames, and then many other rivers, the Windrush and the Colne and the Leach. We were at Lechlade earlier, which is at the mouth of the River Leach. And they all become one. So in terms of, caring for things, enjoying them, we need to think of them as one. So my thoughts are that what we should do is record the source of the river from a human point of view, a sort of cultural point of view, really, saying it has been always thought of as the River Thames ends here, and that would just be where that stone was, and then allow people to record perennial river springs. I believe that these are perennial springs, as in all year round they're running, possibly except in extreme drought, I don't know. And then record upstream from perennial sources like this, the intermittent and ephemeral sources. And the reason for doing that, as I said earlier, is because it's just a matter of interest, I guess, but it's also a kind of helpful matter of record, and being able to relate seasonal changes and look for trends to see whether actually it is purely seasonal or whether there's a long-term trend. So being able to record that bit of citizen science, I guess. So, you know, what we'll do, as we do with all features on the map, is location, which you'll be able to add as a user, photograph, videos if you want. Sounds, we'll talk about sounds maybe next week, but because we're trying to create something that's experiential. So actually recording the sounds, and there's not a truck going past here, are quite beautiful actually. And then, yes, so, and then what you observe, particularly, hopefully, and maybe this is something that we can do automatically, is obviously grabbing the date. That would be the date that you observed it, not the date you entered it. But actually, to go with that, grab the data for the aquifer levels, the nearest measuring point for the aquifer levels, and recent rainfall. Because that would, I mean, you could end up with a predictor, right? Perhaps if you reverse engineer that, you should be able to say, having built up a load of observations about where the river, you know, would be, intermittent, ephemeral, whatever, actually now knowing what the aquifer levels are today, because that comes from monitoring stations, Environment Agency, blah, blah, blah. You could then say, if you go out today, wear a mac, it's wet, and you should find the river here. And if you don't, that'll be interesting. Anyway, so going to put this video into the newsletter. It's probably how you've seen this. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please, and you're somehow watching this video, then please go to every-river.org and sign up. No spam, just a kind of weekly-ish email when we've got something to say. We've done one of these days out, and it's also the way, importantly, that we will ask you questions, do mini surveys, and give you the route to give feedback, because that is so important. Can I just be really clear? I know I can speak like I know something. It's been spotted before. I'm very good at sounding authoritative and things I'm really not expert in at all. So this is just me informally chatting. Do not take what I say as in any way sort of factual, and please don't allow it to bleed into your expectations of what the Every River Atlas and Guide is going to be, because it is not going to be my opinions. It is going to be facts from third-party, reliable public authorities, and you, and like Wikipedia, that will build up its own authority through time. Anything else to say? Yeah, next week we're going to go down and find the sea. Where is the sea? How salty does it have to be before it's the sea? And we are also going to be uploading the photos I've done from today on our Flickr page. I'll put the links in the newsletter and on the web page. And there will be short videos that go up on another Every River channel, just not to get confused. This Every River channel on YouTube is just for these sort of, talking about Every River and blogs and stuff, but there will be a separate channel, which is actually just short videos, no commentary, because that's the way we're going to store and pull in those short videos on features, so that when you like turning the page of an atlas, there will be videos that show you, illustrate the point. Maybe illustrating the glossary, so what certain terms mean, etc. So if you see that, don't get confused and think, oh, why is, or be glad I'm not talking over it. Anyway, thanks for your attention. Cheers.